Hello and welcome to another CTRMRadio podcast from Commodity Technology Advisory, hosted by CTRMCenter.com, your place for everything CTRM. I'm Gary Vasey, and today I'm talking with Prasanna of ValueCreed. ValueCreed positions itself at the forefront of innovation, providing cutting-edge solutions to energy markets worldwide. And in this conversation, we explore how digitalization and intelligent automation can help streamline and optimize energy businesses. Let's get started by asking Prasanna about the current opportunities and challenges facing energy firms. Thanks so much for joining us on CTRM Radio. And plainly, we're involved in an industry that's going through lots of change right now, lots of geopolitics, lots of things from a technology point of view impacting the industry, lots of volatility. So what do you see as the primary drivers that are reshaping the landscape today? And what are the most significant challenges and opportunities that these are creating for businesses in energy and commodities?
Thanks, Gary, for this opportunity, and really appreciate our moment over here. And it gives me a great amount of, I would say, happiness to kind of put together the viewpoints, what we have seen in the recent times. You're absolutely right that the industry is going through massive ebbs and flows of the changes, and these forces, the primary forces, are creating a kind of a level of market complexity that have not been seen in the decades. Now, if I see this kind of an outside-in kind of a view, there are three major areas of work or three major forces which we see in the market, which is kind of shaping the future of the industry. The first one is the energy transition. The second one is extreme market volatility. And the third one, what we see is the explosive growth of digitalization and AI.
Right.
Now, this creates a dual challenge just to think in terms of what kind of an impact would it bring. First is that the companies must manage an increasingly complex portfolios of assets. We are talking about all the way from intermittent renewables, paired with battery storages, to the intricate contract like power purchase agreements that govern them. Now, the risk profiles are fundamentally different from the traditional assets for these kind of contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Second, and perhaps more importantly, we have heard about the AI boom, creating this massive new opportunity of source of demand, especially under the power and the electricity markets. That's an area of work. The procurement of clean, reliable power is the primary bottleneck for the growth of major technology firms. And that's something which our clients are passionate to address. And that's where we see, again, a big opportunity, right? So again, in terms of the opportunity, it is to move beyond the traditional operations and become this kind of a new breed of sophisticated data-driven organization for companies operating in these areas or trying to take the best leverage out of these market forces.
So how does ValueCreed strategically position itself to help clients navigate through this complexity? And what do you see as your core value proposition?
Thanks, Gary. So we in ValueCreed help our clients transform this complexity, what we just talked about, into a competitive advantage. We guide them into becoming what we call as a quantitative energy firm. So our value proposition essentially comes as a part of our belief is kind of spread into two-step approach. The first one is essentially think about it this way, that the foundational problem of siloed data that has been sitting there for most of our clients. So how do we kind of help them in this journey? So we unlock the core data into a flexible central platform and a foundation. Now, this is the prerequisite for our core strategy that is generating alpha through an enterprise-wide optimization on asset management. There is another way to think about it. Back in the days, you would have individual desks optimizing their own local books, and essentially there would be more of this kind of a micro view of the business and in terms of the commercial output. Now, what we have moved away from is to build a more holistic models overseeing every physical asset and financial position across the firm. This engine, which is primarily a quantitative engine, can determine in real time what would be the most profitable enterprise-wide strategy. For example, whether it's better to sell natural gas on the spot market, or would it be better to use that natural gas to power a peaker plant to capture a spike in the electricity prices? That's first part of the strategy. The second part is with that foundation in place, we start automating the complex decision making. This is just not about efficiency, it's about embedding a quantitative discipline into the core processes of our clients. A classic example, something which we have done recently, is we have kind of put together a quantitative discipline around dynamic counterparty risk management, where we have used financial models to fuse various factors like market data, operational signals into a real-time forward-looking view of a risk, enabling proactive adjustments into trading terms. Now, this is something which is a bit different than typically what we did previously, because it would primarily be more of a reactive model, but now we have moved into a different kind of a paradigm.
One of the things that we found with AI is that there's still something of a trust issue. So having a situation where AI is making decisions for you still seems to be somewhat an uncomfortable situation. People still want some human involved, taking advice from AI and then making the decision. Are you seeing that, and do you think the industry is ready to move to a fully automated future?
This is arguably one of the critical questions what we deal with when we are trying to augment artificial intelligence into the concept of this quantitative discipline, or into this kind of the ways of working. The biggest challenge what we see is not the technology, it's the human element. Our key learning is that trust is the ultimate KPI for any advanced ways of working or any advanced model. So think about it this way: a sophisticated system is worthless if traders and schedulers and the risk managers don't trust it and revert back to their old habits or old ways of working. So our philosophy is that when we work into this kind of a digital transformation journey across CTRMs and the associated systems and the landscape, our job is not to replace expert intuition, but rather we augment it. We achieve this through a human in the loop framework built on transparency. Now, the keyword over there is transparency. So first, to demystify the black box, we draw on our experience in the past projects where we have used explainable AI techniques like shape and line. So those are the classic two what we go into to show the traders or the risk managers that why a model is making a recommendation and linking it back to the specific market drivers that they understand. Second, we used a phased approach. So you have an AI recommendation, but then there is also an avenue where a human expert validates and overrides it, allowing the model to learn from the expertise. Now, this is the collaborative approach, which builds confidence, ensures user adoption, and this is one of the only ways we see where we evolve this decision-making culture into the future of a truly quantitative energy firm.
Yeah, and I think another side to it as well is that data. What do you advise people looking at adopting such a strategy in terms of preparing their data in order to be able to do this? Because data, the old adage still stands, right? Bad data in, bad results out.
When we talk about the data and how do we kind of make the best use of the data into this quantitative approach, right? It is important that we need to understand this from the viewpoint of how the business, what kind of a business problems we are solving. Let me give an example, right? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about a dynamic optimization problem, like about battery arbitrage. There, the simple predictive models are insufficient. We require to move into the realms of reinforcement learning. That's the area of work which we typically operate on. We develop a bespoke RL agent, a reinforcement learning agent, typically using a deep Q network or a policy gradient method like PPO, right? That learns the optimal charge and the discharge strategy through millions of simulated trading days. Now, crucially, there is also going to be the factor of market uncertainty. So these inputs to the agents are not single point forecasts. And I'm trying to give this kind of an angle from a data point of view. So we don't supply the single point forecast, but rather full probability distributions. Mm-hmm. And then we apply Bayesian deep learning typically to generate the price and the forecast with a calibrated confidence intervals. The business outcome is not just about having an automated agent that executes a strategy, but also it quantifies its own uncertainty. It discovers non-linear trading policies that can capture intraday volatility spikes and other market dynamics that a human or a simple rule-based system would miss. So it's about creating a system that actively learns how to maximize the revenue from an asset, consistently adding alpha. For this kind of an approach, what we just spoke about, this is one of the examples where you need to think very differently from a model, which is from a data requirement, which is typically used for a simple linear equation solver. So the kind of the multi-model inputs in terms of the data in order to bring together the different inputs, such as your full probability distributions or multi factors of battery SCADA information or other kind of supply chain information. That's a different kind of a ball game we are dealing with.
And it's quite a quantitative approach, and it's moving beyond simple forecasting. So give us a little bit more detail about some of the sorts of problems that you solve in this way.
The quantitative approach, what we deal with, we have seen a large amount of push towards essentially the kind of the intermittency risk, what we have seen in the renewable areas of work. So one of the examples what I spoke about is the kind of the battery optimization or the battery arbitrage, right? So the battery energy storage systems have their own optimization problems, which it tries to bring on the table. A lot of our clients essentially have this kind of a hybrid ecosystems where they have gas speakers, they have pure battery renewables. Now, how do you kind of manage or how do you construct this portfolio in the most effective way? That's one of the areas of work which we are really passionate about. Now, moving forward, there is also the kind of the quantitative discipline when it comes to long-term market trading. That's also an area of work where we are typically seeing a big amount of push for generating this momentum-based strategy or essentially creating the strategies which can do superior alpha generation. A lot of our platforms, typically the ETRM and CTRM platforms, are now having this need for talking to these algorithmic trading platforms. And these algorithmic trading platforms are not just to just take a few noteworthy ones, right? Trayport has its own algorithmic platforms.
Yeah.
So there are other platforms on the market. These exchanges or the route to market or these trading places itself have this offering now. So how do you kind of take the best use of it? How do you kind of plug in your own models? And then how do you kind of make sure that your systems are kind of compliant to this level of throttle and this level of compliance regulatory requirement, which might be originating from a regulatory point of view and also from an algorithmic trading point of view? Those are some of the areas which we are actively looking at.
Right. And in your experience, what are the sort of both technical and non-technical challenges to implementing such a quantitative approach? And how do you actually ensure that the tools are adopted and create lasting value?
So when it comes to the challenges, we have, like we went back to the concept of data, the data platform, that's very important to unlock the data into more of this flexible platform. We have been trying to simplify the entire system landscape to understand and give that kind of a differentiation. So think about it this way. So whenever we see the advent of new trading programs or the advent of new ambitions in terms of creating new speculation opportunities or banking on algorithmic trading or banking on energy optimization algorithms in view of the financial markets, how do you kind of tie back finance with operations, right? There is an element over here that we have typically been banking upon a simplification of the landscape. Now think about it this way, that we try to zoom out and we say that the way how you need to look at it is that you have three major buckets you're looking at: your systems of records, your systems of differentiation, and systems of innovation. Now you need to be clear, where does these systems or what would be the kind of the leverage you're operating on or in order to get the job done, right? So if you're going into a quantitative discipline, how much of these systems are going to be involved in order to generate the superior alpha, for example? And we try to simplify it. And in this kind of a macro view of looking at the systems into these three buckets gives a better way of understanding that how do I optimize this system? So what would be the right kind of capabilities which needs to be brought in?
So do you have experience of actually doing this, and what has been the result?
So think about it this way. Our clients have been in a position where they have been looking at this kind of a green transition for a strategic roadmap of, let's say, X number of years.
Yeah.
By incorporating these advanced techniques and the quantitative disciplines, we have been able to even go at half the time, right? So X by 2. So that's one of the major benefits what we have seen. So we are accelerating the green transition. So that's something which we are really proud about. The second benefit what we are seeing is that the total cost of ownership for the systems and the processes, there has been a massive transparency, if not optimization, right? So the optimization comes later, but the transparency, the ability to understand that what am I running with, right? What's my total portfolio size of an IT assets, and how much is the kind of the churn of the business value I'm trying to bring on the table? That has changed massively with this kind of an adoption into the more of a quantitative discipline. The third area of work is that we have been able to also identify these kind of the hidden opportunities of arbitrage or hidden opportunity in the data itself. And we didn't have to go outside the organization. It is within the organization. So all we had to do is plumb the data, bring it into a flexible platform, and then leverage a mix of human plus AI to bring these opportunities forward. So these three areas of like immediate tactical advantage has built clients this kind of a trust on going into this direction more. So for them, it is more about invest forward in this kind of a model, and that has been tremendously a value gain for these clients. I think what's more important is the key takeaway that optimization and the ability to have this digital transformation cutting across. For people who are from the CTRM domain, it is definitely important to have the financial and the commercial viewpoint in terms of the market operations, in terms of the spot market, in terms of operating it from the commercial kind of obligation point of view. I do understand that, or in terms of profit making. But then we always recommend to kind of permeate this digital transformation through the value chain and shifting a little bit leftwards and going into the operational value chain too. There are a number of advents which we have seen in the way how digitalization and the edge computing and the Internet of Things have kind of brought on the table. Combining the operational element to the IT and the financial IT side of it, or the financial services side of it, it's very crucial. And that's an area of optimization which we are really passionate about. And we would want our clients and people and listening to this podcast or the recording, people should be having that sense of having this optimization spreading across and cutting across. So that would be a key takeaway, what I would like to leave on the table.
Sounds good. It's a vision of the industry that I think is where we are going. And over the next few years, I'm sure it's going to be a very exciting time. It seems like you'll be playing a leading role. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Gary, for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.